So you don't have any plans this weekend then?
No.
No. Do you want to go dog walking?
What?
Do you want to go shopping?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Okay.
You're acting kind of weird. What's going on?
So, like, on this girl's profile, her interest, it said, Dove. It might be easier if I just show you the explanation.
Okay. That's a new one.
No, I'd rather just do it with somebody that I know.
Oh, the things I do for you.
Obsessed with Doveromancing presents itself as a deceptively simple narrative that uses curiosity, obsession, and friendship to explore how women encounter language for their desires before they encounter permission for those desires. And the film's quiet power lies in its attention to interiority, particularly the way longing often begins not with another person, but with an idea that feels both unsettling and magnetic, something that disrupts routine and asks to be understood. Aali's introduction alone in her bed, illuminated by the glow of her laptop, situates the story firmly within a contemporary moment where self-discovery often begins online, mediated through search engines, fragmented definitions, and the uneasy intimacy of reading about oneself in abstract terms. Her initial encounter with the word Doveromancing is treated not as a joke or gimmick, but as a genuine moment of cognitive and emotional disruption, the kind that many queer women recognize from their own lives when they first stumbled upon language that articulated feelings they had never been taught to name. The widening of Aali's eyes, followed by her softened expression, captures the precise emotional arc of recognition, tempered by fear. A realization that something resonates deeply even if it does not yet make sense within the frameworks she has been given. The absence of results when she searches further becomes symbolically rich, suggesting the limits of language and the ways women's experiences, particularly queer women's experiences, are often underdocumented, under-theorized, or rendered invisible by dominant cultural narratives. Her frustration is not merely about curiosity left unsatisfied, but about the loneliness of sensing something meaningful without communal validation, a feeling intensified by the sense that if something cannot be found, it may not be allowed to exist. The decision to close her laptop and turn out the light does not signal resolution but repression, a familiar gesture of postponement that reflects how women are often taught to compartmentalize unsettling questions in order to function, promising themselves they will return to them later, while knowing, on some level, that they will not be able to let them go. The following morning's restlessness confirms this, as Aali's inability to focus becomes a manifestation of how unresolved questions about desire can bleed into every aspect of daily life, making even simple tasks feel unmanageable when something essential remains unexamined. Inviting April over as a distraction underscores the social dimension of self-discovery, highlighting how women often turn to friendship for grounding while simultaneously using it as a shield against vulnerability. April's arrival introduces a contrast between Aali's internal preoccupation and the surface-level normalcy of their interaction, a dynamic that mirrors many queer women's experiences of feeling out of sync with their surroundings during periods of intense self-questioning. Aali's mishearing of April's words is not played for humor alone but functions as an illustration of how obsession can reshape perception, bending external reality around an internal fixation that demands attention. When Aali finally confesses her fixation, the moment is framed as an act of trust, acknowledging the risk inherent in naming something that feels strange, undefined, and potentially unsettling. April's response, asking what she can do to help, reflects a model of care rooted in responsiveness rather than judgment, offering support without immediately attempting to categorize or dismiss Aali's experience. This exchange resonates strongly with lesbian and queer audiences, for whom disclosure often involves testing whether curiosity will be met with curiosity, whether uncertainty will be met with patience, and whether vulnerability will be honored rather than corrected. Aali's suggestion that they try Doveromancing together is framed carefully, not as an attempt to convince or pressure, but as a desire to understand through shared experience, emphasizing consent and mutual agreement as foundational rather than incidental. April's reluctance is equally important, demonstrating that willingness does not require immediate comfort, and that ethical intimacy involves acknowledging hesitation rather than glossing over it. Her eventual decision to participate, prompted by Aali's appeal to experimentation, can be read not as capitulation, but as a recognition that exploration itself can be a form of care, particularly when approached thoughtfully and collaboratively. The movement to Aali's bedroom marks a transition from public to private space, symbolizing the shift from intellectual curiosity to embodied self-inquiry. Yet the film resists sensationalizing this transition, keeping the focus squarely on emotional states rather than physical detail. April. Laying Aali down is depicted as an act of attentiveness and grounding, reinforcing the idea that intimacy between women often begins with safety, trust, and presence, rather than urgency or conquest. As the experiment unfolds, the narrative remains committed to restraint, emphasizing the emotional exchange between the characters and the subtle shifts in understanding that occur when curiosity is met with openness rather than fear. The notion that April becomes obsessed as well by the end is not framed as contagion or manipulation, but as the natural outcome of shared exploration, suggesting that understanding is rarely unilateral and that intimacy often transforms all participants involved. Through this arc, the film speaks directly to lesbian and queer women who have experienced how admiration, curiosity, or intellectual fascination can function as socially acceptable disguises for deeper feelings, allowing connection to develop under the cover of experimentation, humor, or shared projects. Aali's initial fixation on a concept rather than a person reflects a common pathway for queer self-recognition, where desire is first encountered abstractly, safely distanced from interpersonal risk, before gradually revealing its relational implications. April's role oscillates between friend, collaborator, and mirror, illustrating how women often help each other see themselves more clearly, even when doing so challenges established identities or relational boundaries. The careful negotiation between them mirrors real-world pressures queer women face to remain legible and non-threatening, particularly within friendships that may be scrutinized for signs of impropriety or dismissed as harmless regardless of their emotional depth. Beyond its queer specificity, the film also speaks to broader experiences of women navigating burnout, emotional labor, and the search for authenticity in a culture that rewards composure over curiosity. Aali's obsession can be read as a response to the exhaustion of maintaining equilibrium, a sign that something unacknowledged is demanding space, and her initial attempt to suppress it reflects how women are often conditioned to view their inner lives as secondary to external obligations. April's willingness to engage, even amid uncertainty, models an alternative approach rooted in collaboration rather than containment, suggesting that relational support can create room for self-exploration rather than merely stabilizing existing roles. The narrative's refusal to pathologize Aali's fixation challenges cultural tendencies to dismiss women's curiosity as frivolous or excessive, instead treating it as a legitimate avenue towards self-knowledge. In doing so, the film critiques society's persistent discomfort with women expressing interest in one another, a discomfort that often manifests as erasure or trivialization rather than overt condemnation. By focusing on emotional resonance and mutual recognition, Obsessed with Doveromancing resists sensationalization, insisting that women-centered intimacy deserves seriousness and respect, even when it emerges from unconventional origins. The symbolic roles within the story are understated but potent. Aali embodies the seeker, grappling with the tension between curiosity and fear, while April represents the ethical companion, negotiating boundaries while remaining open to transformation. Their interaction reflects dynamics common within queer communities, where mentorship, experimentation, and chosen family often intersect, requiring constant communication to navigate power imbalances and emotional risk. The film's emphasis on consent, dialogue, and mutual responsiveness reinforces its commitment to portraying lesbian relationships as ethically grounded rather than impulsive or transgressive. Writing for an audience of women and LGBTQ+ viewers, the narrative offers recognition rather than spectacle, inviting reflection on how language, friendship, and curiosity can converge to open new possibilities for understanding oneself and others. As a cultural text, Obsessed with Doveromancing contributes to conversations about visibility and emotional truth by illustrating that self-discovery is often nonlinear, beginning with questions rather than answers and unfolding through relationships that honor complexity rather than demanding resolution. Ultimately, the film affirms that women's love for women, whether initially framed as curiosity, fascination, or experimentation, is not a deviation to be corrected, but a truth to be explored with care, patience, and respect, emphasizing that becoming visible to oneself is an ongoing process shaped by connection, trust, and the courage to remain open in a world that still struggles to acknowledge the depth and legitimacy of women's relationships with one another.